So we're on chapter 10 of your math book, and we're going to be talking about the checking account. This is your consumer math. We all need to know about how to balance our checking account, and in having a checking account, what other things do we need to know? So we're going to talk about, first of all, the electronic transfers. You see here, you can kind of see my notes here in the midst of all this. And what is an electronic transfer? Well, it's a transfer from and out of your account, either by check or by debit somehow. Well, checks are pretty good. Checks and debits are the same thing. Debit means that it'll be taken out of your account, right? So why are checks so nice to use? Well, because of a few different reasons. First of all, checks can be mailed safely. Let's move over a little bit so you can read it. Checks can be mailed safely. Payments may be stopped on lost or stolen checks. It frees you from carrying a large amount of cash. Instead, you can just have a checkbook with you. And canceled checks provide receipts showing that you paid something. And checks are recorded for your budget planning, so you can look at your checks and see. And also, a lot of times they need check stubs for tax purposes, for income tax. So that's why, those are some of the reasons why checks are pretty easily used and used today. Although now we have electronic type checks, but still you need to know how to write a check. So the types of banking accounts now. So when you go in the bank, what kind of account should you get? Well, first of all, there's the demand deposit. That's a non-interest, that means it doesn't give you interest, that the bank must pay you when you give a check, but they will not give you interest. So a non-interest bearing account is a demand deposit. And then you have the interest bearing accounts. There's a couple interest bearing accounts here, as we see. We have the NOW account, which NOW just means negotiable order of withdrawal, is all it means. So when you have a NOW account, it just means that it's an interest bearing account. So there's also a Super NOW, and that usually you have to have a greater balance than you, and there's more restrictions on a Super NOW. But NOW is basically just an interest-bearing account. There's also money markets, and money markets require a minimum balance, usually of $1,000 to keep in there to have a money market account. So your interest, when you have interest in an account, it can be either simple interest or compound interest. We're going to get into compound interest later and how to calculate it, but basically you need to know this fact, that compound interest will give you more interest than simple, because you'll compound it. They may compound it daily, or they may compound it weekly, or compound it semi-annually, or however they do, but compound will give you more interest than a simple interest. And you may want two accounts. You know, I always want two accounts, a checking and a savings account, but you may want an interest account and a non-interest account when you get older, you know, to be able to have some interest, although many times the interest is very negligible on a checking account, more on a savings account. So what's a depositor? I hope you know what a depositor is. A depositor is someone that's putting money in the bank. If you deposit money in the bank, you are a depositor. And basically, you'll be, some accounts have a monthly service charge. Many accounts are free, but some have, an interest-bearing account may have a limit on the number of checks. So you have to find out about your account. You know, does it have a limit on checks? You know, do they have a monthly service charge? Is it free of charge? They charge you nothing if you have a balance? What is your balance you have to have? Do you have to keep a balance of $1,000 or they charge you? So you need to know. And you need to always balance to make sure that you have the amount in the bank to cover your checks, that you have enough, that you're not going to have insufficient funds if you write a check, right? That's pretty important. And of course, then we have an ATM. An ATM, what ATM means is automatic teller machine. And so basically you could put in, you can withdraw, you can withdraw so much per day I think most of the time they have $100 a day or $200 a day or whatever they have, so that someone can't get your ATM and start just taking out all of your money in one sitting, right? So it's very important that you well, let's go over the rules for ATM. I think that's pretty important. I wrote the rules down. So let's go through here. We're going to go over some rules for ATM and making a deposit, but let's go over the rules first here. Let's see if you can read it here, so I might have to move it over a little bit. So, ATM rules. Report a lost card to the bank right away. Never give out your PIN, because someone can get your card and take all your money, and even as much, what you're liable. And do not keep your number with your ATM card. So if you lose your ATM card, your PIN number is not with it. That's not a good idea. And then notify your bank. If it's after 2 days, they can say that you're liable for $500 of it. You'll have to pay $500 that was stolen. After 60 days, sometimes you can have unlimited liability and have to pay the bank. But if you notify the bank right away, usually the liability for you is like $50, no more than $50 liability for somebody. Now sometimes if you catch it right away, and give them right away, you won't be liable at all, because they'll cancel it right away, so no one could get in, and they'll investigate. So now let's talk about the checking account, your checking account. So to find the bank with the lowest monthly charge and the best benefits for teenagers, right? And do not be afraid to transfer your money out of that bank account if you do not like that bank account. And in opening account, make sure they're going to ask you, what are they going to do? First of all, when you go into the account to open your account, they're going to ask for your signature. They're going to ask for your first deposit, take your first deposit of money, and they are going to see if you want to order checks. Now when you order checks, they're going to charge you, so find out how much it's going to cost for you to order checks. It's usually about $15 or $20. They're going to they'll give you an account number with a deposit slip on it, so you can put your money in the account, so that you can always also go through an ATM machine if you need to, an automatic teller. That's an automatic teller machine. And never use an ATM to deposit coins. They won't take coins. I wouldn't even use an ATM deposit cash, it's good for taking out cash, and it's also good for depositing checks sometimes. And the transit number of checks should be given on the numerator on the check. So we'll look at that a little bit. So, and making a deposit. Let's look at making deposit from your book. Let's see if I can get this in here a little better. Steps for making a deposit. I want this to fall off because sometimes it does. Okay. So, steps for making a deposit. So, you can deposit currency and coins. Let's see. There we go. Steps for making a deposit. You can read this in your book too. You can deposit currency and coins, but you always should arrange them from the greatest to the least. So if you have cash, put your biggest bills on top. A lot of people don't do that, but it's just formally that you'll know from which ones are which bills, going from that way. It's easier to count. Although now a lot of banks have counting machines. So you put the coins in the paper rolls. There's usually 50 pennies in a roll and 50 dimes in a roll, and nickels and quarters, 40 in a roll. And on these little papers, you get these little paper containers, coin rolls. You get them from your bank, and then when you count them up and put them in the coin rolls, put your name on it, and then put your account on it in case you lose it. Let the bank, or the bank loses it, finds out, oh, it goes into their account. That's where the money goes. So it's good to write your name on it. You should list your checks separately and place the transit numbers to the left of the amount. Let's look at that. Here we go here. I think you have this on the test, exactly how it looks. So here's the account. You put, see how they put the count number? So here is your deposit slip and the date. They want the date is deposit of the year. They didn't put the year there. This is of course your deposit slip. Of course it's a different name, but you'll have your own. And then we'll have the currency. Put up the currents, dollars and cents, the coins, what they come to. And then here's the transit numbers. So you put the transit numbers of those checks that you got from other people, right? That you have endorsed for other people. And you put these checks are written here, and then you'll go put the amounts here, and then you'll add up all of these amounts, because all of these amounts are how much you're depositing, right? And it added up there to $264.69, I think there. And then if you take any cash out of that, you have to subtract it. If you don't, usually, well, not always, sometimes I'll take cash, but hardly, ever. But anyway, you put down minus if you took any cash out, and you put your number there. That's how you do it. You subtract any money. You have to endorse every check. So how do you endorse? On the back of the check, you sign your name on the back of the check. The back of the check at the top, the top, usually on the right. Like you turn it over so it's right on the, or actually on the top corner, which would not be the bottom, right? The top corner. And you'll endorse it there. Sign your name, and I always sign for deposit only. That means, if I'm just depositing that check, or if you're going to cash that check, is a different story. But then nobody can cash it. So in case you signed your name in the back of the check, somebody got the check and then then stole it from you. So if you put deposit only, nobody can take cash from it, right? You put all of your account numbers on the checks too, and of course you're going to add the currency and checks here. This is on this deposit slip. Subtract any money you want to keep, and then record it, the total on the deposit. So that's basically what I kind of went over here. So now you know how to do a deposit. How about writing checks? So do you know how to write a check? A lot of kids don't know how to write a check. I think it's so important you learn these things, These exercises too are going to be very easy to do. It's mainly adding and subtracting and putting checks and currency in here. Let me show you what the examples are going to be. They're going to have, probably on the test or something, they'll have something, and you just have to put in, the coins and the check, and then make sure you put the transit numbers here, and then you add them up, and then less cash. And they're going to have you just practice doing these. They're very, very easy, adding and subtracting. Just make sure that you don't add or subtract deposits are added and the checks are withdrawn, right? So now let's talk about writing a check. I'm going to whiz through this pretty quickly. So writing a check, see if I can, there you go. Hope you can see that good. There we go. Writing a check. Checks are good to have because you have their check stubs or your check register, and you can keep that up to date. You should keep it up to date daily if you can. If you're writing a lot of checks, or at least every time you write a check, make sure you put the check in there and put what it's for and who's it's to, so that you don't you keep it over date, so you don't have overdrafts. That means that you don't write out more checks than you have money in the bank. Some bank accounts give you overdraft protection if you have a savings account. A lot of times if you have a savings account, they'll transfer it right from your savings account if you go over. I've done that before. And sometimes they'll have a credit card on it. So if you go over and wrote too many checks, they'll put it on a credit card, and usually those credit cards are high interest. So you have to deal with them right away, because they're actually making money on that credit card where they put your overdraft on that. So keep your checks up to date. So the checks with the stubs, some have checkbooks like this with it on the side. Mine had it on the top where you put, now this will be your receipt because you're going to give this check to somebody, but this will be your receipt. And some are on the top. Mine on the top, these are on the sides. And some have carbon copies. But if you have a carbon copy, because the carbon copies don't come through that well, and you have to look and think, why did I write this? I can't even see it on there. So it's always good to keep a register. And this is the register at the side here. Let's keep the register of then you can know what checks you wrote, So some at the right, some at the top, carbon copies. Let's see. Always record your ATMs in there. That's what I forget to do some, and withdrawals, so you can keep your record here would be up to date. And you think, oh man, I forgot to put my ATM in there. I just withdrawed $100, you know? So that's pretty important. The checkbook register is the record, your record. And that's a test question. You'll say, what is your record? You'll say checkbook register. Checkbook register is your record, right? So the number of checks, you try to keep them in numerical order. These right here, to keep them in order is a good thing, because then it isn't so confusing. Sometimes I don't always do that because I have a couple checkbooks, you know, like a husband has a checkbook and you have a checkbook, so you have different numbers. But actually you can tell because you know where the numbers came from, because they go in numbered order, you know, and this is check number 127. So let's see. Okay. Oh, if you make a mistake and you have to throw the check away, always write void, V-O-I-D, over the check, and then throw it away so someone else can't get the check. And then a lot of times I tear it up, but I always write void over them. So whenever you have a check that you're not going to use, write void, V-O-I-D. Nobody can use it then. So, and then always record in the register over on this side. Okay, let's go over how to write a check. You have your checkbook register, your register, and your check. So you write down the date of the check, date written, to whom it was written to. And, you know, write the name. If it's a company, it might be an individual. Some people say for cash, and they put cash in there. If you put cash, and you sign that, you make sure that, that cash is, that's kind of like, because anybody could cash it then, it doesn't have a name on it. So I never do that. But anyway, here's the person and the amount. Okay, see how the amount, let's see if you can see this. See how the amount is written here. You can write it in decimal point too, like 81.12, or you can write it 87, I think it's 87, right? I'm reading it right. Can't get any further down here. Let's see. Yeah, 87. And then to write out the number, 87, and then you'd always do it in hundreds, 12 hundredths. And then you put a squiggling line all the way so nobody else can write any more money in there, right? It's a good to put a line all the way to the end, dollars. So it says 87 and 12 100ths of dollars. So put this line all the way to the end. So, okay. Then on here in the memo, you could put down what this is for, your electric bill. So, because you're going to probably get this check back. If you don't get the check back nowadays, they give you a copy of it, a copy of your check, so you can look and see, and it'll be in your check register when they send it in the mail, or if you look online, you can look it up. They have it, and they'll have a copy of it. So, but then you can look and say, oh yeah, I remember, I paid that. That was my electrical bill, So just to remember, sometimes I'll do a check to somebody and I don't remember why I gave it to them. So it's very important they put it down, especially Papu. He would put down, some guy, and he some for his construction company, and I'll say, what did you give him money for? He goes, I don't remember, So it's really important to remember, especially when it comes to tax time. So, okay, let's see. Date, and yeah, we went on. Let's see, the amount, subtract, let's see, think of what you, always check your addition and subtraction over here. This is important over here because sometimes you can make a big mistake here by subtracting wrong. So always check that, and subtract the amount from the balance and add deposits. If you deposit anything, make sure you add deposits in here so that it will be accurate. Let's see. Check your, avoid insufficient funds, because a lot of times for insufficient funds, the bank will charge you. If you don't have a credit card for them to put it on, they'll charge you, and they can charge you up to $20 to $40. And they also, if you have a lot of insufficient funds, they also say you are a risk. You're a poor credit risk. So they say your credit rate goes way down, because you have a lot of insufficient funds, right? So let's see, we went over the writing the check, memo, yep, and then always check it over, make sure everything's okay, make sure you have the date, the right date, and then make sure you have the right person, make sure that this is right, that your money is right, and that you put this through, and this, and always sign it last. Don't sign your name first, because somebody can get your blank check and just take out whatever they want. Always sign your name, you know, after you've got all this other information in, and then sign your name at the bottom. But yeah, never write the amount in first, and you know, never write the amount in or sign it and don't write the amount in. Say you wrote the name in, and if you didn't know what the amount yet, and this was blank, they can write any amount in there. So never sign the check unless you've written the amount in. You don't want to give them a blank check, you know. Okay, I think that's it for writing checks. And most of the questions here are going to be for you to fill out a register, you know. So this will be a register. I think you have one on the test too. So if you look at the register and how to fill it out, it's pretty easy here. So you can see, let me get that. So as you see here, they have the check number here, the date, who the check's to, you know, the amount that you paid them, other deductions, yeah, we put that, and here's the register. So this is a full-on register here too. This is the kind I have at the top of my checks. Some people have it on the side, but they're going to ask you to put these in. So you put down to, and here you put in to Donald. Here's a deposit, so you say deposit, paycheck. You deposit your paycheck, so you put the deposit over here. ATM, you took cash out, 20 bucks cash, so make sure you put the amount here. This is the withdrawals, and these are the deposits. And so here we have, you know, checks ordered from bank. They're going to charge you $13.75. You had to put that in there. And then you paid to Grace Church, a tithe or something, some money to the offering to the church. Then you'll put down the amount here. So, and just know you can put down who your deposit or who you wrote the check out to, withdraw it, and then deposits, ATMs, you put all here, and then you're going to be adding and subtracting. You're going to add your deposits in, and you're going to subtract your checks. So let's see here. Right here, let's go over these steps really quick. For writing a check, I think I went over these already, but we'll go over them quickly. Steps here: write the date, month, the day, your year, the payee, of course, the amount, and write the number of amount close to the dollar sign to dishonest person. We did that so that they can't add anything on. Write the memo, write the purpose of the check. Be sure to either either the check stub or the check register was accurately completed. So that is your checks. How to write a check. Here's another check. An example of the check is given below again here. Here's another one. Myers Department Store, March 10th, wrote the date. 42 and 87 hundredths, 42.87, and then what you wrote for, and then make sure you sign your name. So I like up here where it says, happy is the man that findeth wisdom, the man that getteth understanding, for the merchandise of it is better than the merchandise of silver, and the gain thereof than fine gold. Hey, that's a good way to end when you're talking about money, huh? So let's stop there, and we'll go on to the next section, and then we'll go on to the quiz.